Hi, I apologize for not being able to be in class today, but hopefully Kat and I are going to get some great stuff out of the UCCE conference this weekend. But here's my research survey presentation. So the question that I formed and did some research on was, how do minority students benefit from a Catholic school education? So my thesis, as I began the process of researching this topic and getting to know my sources a little better, was that Catholic education is becoming more and more accessible to people of all backgrounds and incomes, especially through programs like the Cristo Rey Network and the Nativity Network. And my thoughts were that these Catholic school educations were better preparing minority and low-income students for their futures, and helping them to develop better educational outcomes, and also helping them to have less behavioral issues. And I think from what I learned the most out of it was that Catholic high school education gives minority students more opportunities for college experiences. So all the sources I used for this research project studied Latino and African American students in particular, both in Catholic schools and public schools, to compare the two. Most of the information gathered from the research was done through surveys done nationally on test scores, graduation rates, and college acceptance rates across public schools and Catholic schools that can be found on the internet. But beyond that, many of the researchers that were the authors of these sources collected a lot of their data through interviews with the school principals, through students in both public schools and Catholic schools, and also through college counselors in these high schools. So first, I started with a chart of the rate of minority student enrollments in Catholic schools. Although this stopped at 2010, it has steadily increased since then as well. So what we're seeing here is that minority students are getting more access to Catholic schools and enrolling more each year. So the first source I looked at was Trends in Catholic School Minority Enrollment and Higher Education Entrance Over the Recession by Anthony Satari. So although this one looked at how the recession affected Catholic school education of minorities in particular, everything they said was relevant to today's culture as well. So I have two figures here that I took right from the source. So the first figure up top is the rate of Black students being enrolled in Catholic schools throughout the academic year. And it shows that since the early 2000s it has risen, but it's also gone in and out a little bit. And then the figure on the bottom of the screen shows rates of Hispanic student enrollment in Catholic schools by academic year, and it basically shows the same thing. It was a steady increase from the early 2000s, but since then it's fluctuated a little bit. So what this source came to conclude was that minority students with a Catholic school background are considered majorly to be better prepared for the rigorous work that a college education calls for. And that would be better prepared than their equivalents, counterparts in public schools. In addition to that, minority students with Catholic school backgrounds are also more likely than their public school equivalents to attend colleges, to have the belief that they're going to graduate college and then actually go and graduate college. Numerous studies have found that these minorities are more likely to graduate from college if they attended Catholic schools, regardless of whether they're from a low-income family or a middle-class family. Studies also imply that more students from historically disadvantaged backgrounds, like the Latinos and the African Americans that we're looking at in this study, will be capable of social mobility, because once they go to Catholic school and then go on to receive their college degree, they'll then have the ability to get a job and move up the social ladder. So the second source I looked at was Moving Beyond the College Preparatory High School Model to a College-Going Culture in Urban Catholic High Schools by Ursula Aldana. So the chart I have here is of the percentage of male students who graduate from high school, and that's solely because this source in particular looked at African American and Latino males in two different high schools. So as you can see here, in this chart shows graduation rates in public high schools. So white males obviously have a much higher graduation rate from public high schools than Latino and African American males, whereas the Latinos and African Americans only just over half of their population goes on to actually graduate. And I took that from a different survey done online in 2012, I apologize. Okay, so as I mentioned already, the research done for this survey by Aldana was done in 2 college prep urban Catholic high schools, and they looked completely, exclusively at males, African American and Latino males in these 2 different Catholic high schools. And what the source came to conclude was that one of the schools had a really college-going culture embedded deep within their school, and the other one called themselves a college prep school, but did not go so far as making it part of their culture, and thus more students from the one that had the college-going culture embedded in their environment had more students going on after graduation to attend college than the one that did not. But overall, it just showed how important it is that these urban Catholic schools establish that college-going culture, so that these historically marginalized students know how they can make decisions about going to college and where to go to college. It went on to say that underrepresented youth, especially those without parents who attended college, which we see a lot with minority students in Catholic schools, they need teachers to help them create a college-going identity and receive a high school experience that will adequately prepare them for being in that college setting, as college settings require more effort and more academic rigor. So college-going culture has been found to improve academic outcomes for these underrepresented high school students in all the research they did. And the research overall showed that Catholic high schools do have that college preparatory environment that makes them able to produce successful outcomes for their minority students, particularly the African American and Latino male students that this source was looking at. So the third source I was looking at was, does Jesus want us to be poor? Student perspectives on the religious program at a Cristo Rey Network school. And this was also done by Ursula Aldana. But the difference between this source and the last one was that this one looked primarily at what the students thought they were getting from their Catholic education. So this article in particular looked at the Cristo Rey Network, which I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation. So Cristo Rey Networks, they are on a corporate work study program where the students attend school 4 days a week, and then on the 5th day they work full-time to help pay for their tuition. And so all the students that attend the school are from low-income families. I'm blessed to be working at a Cristo Rey Network come August. So the article looked at the Cristo Rey Network and focused on its commitment to improving the social mobility of low-income students, which one of the other sources have already mentioned. Catholic schools do help minority and low-income students to be able to attain that social mobility, because once they graduate high school, they can go on to get that college degree that enables them to work and move up the social ladder. So the Cristo Rey Network schools offer the students the rigorous academic curriculum that they need to be able to go on and achieve that. And as well as that academic curriculum, they offer the social skills, the work study program, which allows them to have the work experience, and all of this prepares them for post-secondary and career success, so college success and then job success after that. And it mentioned that emergent research on the Cristo Rey Network in particular points to the power of a college-going culture and its positive impact on low-income Latino and African American students. Basically, this source is it's emphasizing what the other sources have already said. So the leaders of the Cristo Rey Network were motivated by the Catholic social teaching principles that recognize and prioritize the poor and the marginalized. That's why they started the Cristo Rey Network in Chicago, and they developed the work study program to make Catholic school experience more accessible to families who normally could not afford them. So the Cristo Rey Network also developed a set of mission effectiveness standards to ensure that the 28 schools that are part of the network now across the country establish a culture of high expectations by blending the rigorous academics, the 4 years of professional work experience, the Catholic moral values, and support for their students, too, and then also as they go through college. So the conclusion of this source was that the social structure